We go to the grocery store and you basically have an option between farm fish and wild-caught salmon. It's definitely a hot topic right now.
The organic label on farm salmon is a ploy just to get people to buy fish.
Salmon farms are destroying wild salmon around the world.
You know, they mislead people, the anti-salmon farming people, about the drugs. It's not how well I do my job. It's how much money those people can get.
I think it's definitely the way that we're going to be growing things in the future. Because we are closed containment and we're biosecure, if a disease can't get in, you don't need to treat for it.
Wild seafood is one of the last proteins left in the world that actually comes from the wild.
My name is Mark Abma, and I'm a professional skier / restaurateur. That's a simple concept. It's an organic farm-to-table restaurant, and working with the farmers and serving it to the people. I spend a lot of time in the mountains and a lot of time interacting with nature. Because of that, I definitely have a deep respect for the environment and for the nature, because it really dictates how we live our lives. Eating organically is very important to me. Organic means to me food that hasn't been altered, grown up naturally, and it's good for you. These days, it's so hard to know what is organic and what's not. And I'm lucky to live in a place where I have a lot of food growing around me, and I'm able to go to the farmers and eat directly from them. Living in BC, we go to the grocery store and you basically have an option between farm fish and wild-caught salmon. It's definitely a hot topic right now. It's kind of unfortunate. It seems like we're trying to raise more fish to feed to the people, but by doing that, we're killing more of the natural fish. So we're not really helping out the situation with feeding more people. So knowledge is power, and I feel like to now be able to hear direct stories from the people that are fishing and growing the fish, it's just great to get that info and see the impacts on how that's affecting the oceans and how it's affecting us. So we're off to see Alex Morton, and she's a fish farm activist.
Fish, unlike chickens, cows, they pick up the toxins out of the fat that they're fed. They store it. And then when people eat it, we store it. And then when a woman has a baby, particularly her first baby, up to 94% of those toxins go into that first baby. They actually mess with how our brain connects. There's scientists saying, you know, it's an epidemic of this type of subtle brain damage where it just lowers your IQ a little bit, but it's taking society down.
Yeah.
You go to a restaurant, you say, is this wild or farmed? If it's farmed, they're gonna say, I don't really know.
Exactly.
It's fresh. The organic label on farm salmon is a ploy just to get people to buy fish. I thought part of the organic vision was to fit into this planet instead of running against it. And salmon farms are destroying wild salmon around the world. I came up here first in 1979 because I was looking for a specific family of killer whales. This is a salmon highway out here, and therefore a whale highway as well. So put myself in the path of the whales in a place called Echo Bay. And then 2 years later, the salmon farms moved in. Really quickly, things started to go wrong. We got bacterial outbreaks. All the whales I was working with, the resident orca, left because they played acoustic harassment devices. And a couple years into it, I'm like, okay, I guess I'm not really a whale researcher anymore because there's no whales here. The prawn fishermen, the cod fishermen, they were physically displaced by the fish farmers. They just came in, dropped their anchors on top of their fishing grounds. I began writing letters saying, putting it on the wild salmon migration routes, you're displacing the whales. And DFO would write back, Dear Ms. Morton, you have no evidence. Government did nothing. Then the sea lice outbreak happened, and I spent 10 years studying sea lice.
Wow.
They get inside the farms from the wild fish, and then they breed like crazy all winter long. And then the little fish come down the way, and it's just, they go through a cloud of lice. And they come out the other side just clustered. Then I moved on to activism. Now I have taken this industry to court 3 times, so a much better solution would be contain the thing on land.
We're such a tiny producer, I could sell every ounce of flesh I produce in the lower mainland of British Columbia, but I don't sell one. And it's because of the David Suzuki Foundation, who profit immensely by the false rhetoric that they put out about salmon farming in British Columbia.
So now we're going to an organic fish farm called Totem. So I'm really interested to learn more about it and see what Totem has come up with a solution for organic fish farms. Hey guys,
Howdy, Mark.
how's it going?
Grand, man. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, super nice to meet you.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
welcome to the hamlet of Egmont.
Awesome, man. It's
And
stoked to be here.
We've got about 20 minutes of travel due west from here, and we'll be at the farm.
Sounds exciting, man.
Alexandra Morton, who's an anti-fish farm campaigner, she was making a big fuss about the Broughton Archipelago and saying that the sea lice are killing all the returning salmon and things like that. So she drew out a corridor and said, this is where the majority of juvenile pink salmons go in and out. We want your salmon farm out of the water during the migration periods.
Yeah.
They did that, took their fish out, and they had an increased rate of sea lice incidents on the fishes migrating in and out than they did when they had the salmon farms there. The controversy about sea lice is advantageous to people that make money by opposing things, creating a doubt in people's minds about how things should be. The iconic Pacific salmon is going to be completely wiped out by sea farms.
Yeah.
Untrue. You know, they've been living with sea lice. If there weren't sea lice, they wouldn't be living. This is called Whirlpool Alley in here, and that's a little one.
Really?
And this whole broad area gets really large whirlpools, and they're dangerous.
They look super dangerous.
A standing wave sets up right here opposite us. So
So is it just because it's all getting congested in this
Yeah.
tight spot here?
yeah, it gets constricted. And that's why we could see when we were looking up the inlet, you can actually see a 2 or 3 feet difference in tide.
Yeah, I've heard rumors of these whirlpools sucking in boats.
Yeah. Well, it's usually a pilot error. You know?
Yeah.
With open net cage culture farming in British Columbia, there has been so much criticism and anger about salmon in the sea. I believe it's badly misplaced. However, there were and are issues in conventional farming. And I don't care whether you're a conventional farmer of carrots or of Atlantic salmon, you've got a footprint. So how do you make that footprint less dramatic? And that was something I was striving for. Immediately around our farm and underneath our farm is a greater diversity and a greater quantity of animals and plants than there are in the control areas outside of our sablefish farm. Yeah. I'm often asked, well, big deal. So you say you're organic. Is that just so you can get more money? Is it just so that you can sell in Capers Market or Whole Foods or something like that? And that's not the case. You know, the organics is about better fish health, better growth,
Yeah.
and a smaller footprint on the environment. You know, they mislead people, the anti-salmon farming people, about the drugs.
Yeah.
And again, you know, hardly anybody uses drugs anymore, use vaccines. These diseases are in the wild fish. They're in the ocean. They are a way of culling. And we can't, as farmers, afford cullings. You know, we've got to have 90% of our stock get through or we're going to lose money.
Yeah.
If there was one thing to advocate for in aquaculture is to limit the densities that you can have in the ponds.
Yeah.
You know, this coastline is massive. You could take every fish cage in British Columbia and it wouldn't fill Vancouver Harbor.
Yeah.
And look at the size of our coast. then you have a much lower impact of manure and feed waste. And the fishes have less impact on each other, so there's lowered stress. But if the densities are too low, then the fish, it's like Henny Penny, the sky's falling, they're all freaked out. You know? For instance, Arctic char, they grow happiest at over 50 kilos a cubic meter. And maybe it's best at 75. That means this. You know, all day long, you're rubbing up against something, you know? We're such a tiny producer. I could sell every ounce of flesh I produce in the lower mainland of British Columbia, but I don't sell one. And it's because of the David Suzuki Foundation, who profit immensely by the false rhetoric that they put out about salmon farming in British Columbia. As an organic producer, I want the smallest footprint I can possibly have. I'm paying trucking fees to get my fish to New York and Montreal and Edmonton and South Dakota. It's not how well I do my job. It's how much money those people can get.
If you're going to have aquaculture and grow aquaculture, how do you do it sustainably? And that's why we exist.
Welcome to David Suzuki Foundation. Hi, my name is Bill Wareham, and I'm the Western Regional Project Manager for the David Suzuki Foundation. The certification system that the Canadian government established for farm salmon is a bit of a confusing element. It's obviously a marketing benefit for those who want to promote organic because there's an organic consumer audience that wants that, but it doesn't tell the whole story, unfortunately. They can be called organic, but they still allow basically an open door on whatever kind of feed the farms can use. So we see that as problematic. It's a bit of a watering down to what most consumers would inherently believe is an organic standard.
I'm heading off to see a conventional salmon farm called Kutera. As opposed to being in the ocean, it's an inland fish farm.
Hey, John, nice to meet you.
Hey, Mark. How's it going? My name's John Burton, and I'm the Senior Recirculation Technician here at Kutera. Kutera is 100% owned by the Numgeese First Nation of Alert Bay here in BC. It's a controlled environment, and it allows you to produce a uniform, consistent product 12 months of the year. And you can't match that in an open system. You can't match that in a natural system. A strong part of our organization is containment. I think it's definitely the way that we're going to be growing things in the future. Yeah, this is our feeder. Basically, these are the tanks that are on the system.
Okay.
And it breaks up the meals into as many little meals as you want in a day.
Okay.
And can feed as much or as little as you want. I could go in and change individual meals if I wanted to, and all that kind of stuff. You can really play with this. This is our biosecurity barrier. So just have to take your outside footwear off and then step over the bench. And the footwear on this side is all for inside the building only.
Okay.
We're not stylish, but we're biosecure.
And why does everybody want Atlantic salmon?
Largely, the industry started in Europe.
Okay.
It started to compensate for the loss of commercially available Atlantic salmon, and they've established a very strong market for Atlantic salmon globally.
Okay.
Yeah. This tank is roughly 2,000 pieces, and they're about 6 tons. Atlantic salmon are known for jumping.
Oh yeah, they're jumpers, hey?
Yeah, their scientific name means the jumper.
Oh really?
So that distinctive flesh color is because of what they eat.
Yeah.
They don't grow that flesh because they're a salmon. They're that color because of what they eat. Really high pigment bait fish or krill and that kind of stuff, we have to compensate.
Yeah.
So we add that naturally sourced pigment. Because we are closed containment and we're biosecure, if a disease can't get in, you don't need to treat for it. So
Yeah, totally.
it's the entire process, right from egg to plate, you have to control if you're going to be organic. At this point, we're just not a large enough company to do that.
I would take a wild-caught salmon over a farm salmon. What I prefer to put in my own body is something that's more natural, right? So,
Yeah, no, understood. Totally understood. It's pretty much accepted that aquaculture is not going to go away. Wild fisheries, which are declining, are not going to be able to meet that demand.
Yeah.
And so then the question becomes, how much do you draw on your wild stocks? How much do you protect your wild stocks? And if you're going to have aquaculture and grow aquaculture, how do you do it sustainably?
Totally.
And that's why we exist.
we have more people coming on the planet, so we need to keep feeding the people, right? So this is part of evolution, it seems, right now.
Everything we do is very, very sustainable fishing, very minimal bycatch, and what bycatch there is, it comes up, it's alive, we throw it back in the water.
Oh, right on. I'm going spot prawn fishing with Stephen Frank from Organic Oceans. Yo, guys.
All right, Mark, nice to meet you.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Morning. Let's get out there and move.
All right.
Let's get some fish, let's get some prawns.
So today, you guys, as you know, we've been out here fishing spot prawns. The season opened 4 or 5 days ago, and we'll be doing this every bloody day for the next 5 weeks.
And everything we do is very, very sustainable fishing. You'll see with today on the prawn traps
Yeah.
how such a clean fishery it is.
Yeah.
Very minimal bycatch, and what bycatch there is, it comes up, it's alive, we throw it back in the water.
Oh, right on. Your yield would be a little bit smaller.
Yep, a little smaller, yep, but the product is better.
Yep.
The higher demand for the hook and line caught, definitely.
Yeah, right. So how many other spot prawn boats are there?
The entire coast has 250 boats, but that's from Victoria all the way up to the Alaskan border. So there's guys fishing up and down the entire coast.
Yeah, right on.
If you're fishing for money only, you are in the wrong business. you do it for the love of what we do.
Wild seafood is one of the last proteins left in the world that actually comes from the wild.
Yeah.
I mean, vegetables, everything else is farmed.
Yeah.
We catch a sockeye salmon in Johnson Straits. That fish has been in the ocean for 4 years since it was a baby, and it's on its way back to spawn. It's lived in the North Pacific Ocean, living naturally, living organically.
Farm prawns are raised in sewer lagoons in Eastern Asian countries. They're fed chemicals, they're fed any kind of pollution just to make these things grow. It's disgusting. We call them sewer prawns.
Sea lice is a natural phenomenon on the coast, but what's happening with the farms and the issue with the wild salmon fry is not a good deal.
Yeah.
We support closed containment farm on land, because on land you're not affecting the environment. Right now with the open net in the ocean, the environment has no choice.
We're allowed 300 traps per vessel, and we break them down into 6 strings. There's 50 traps per string.
Yeah.
So on opening day, we set all 6 strings, and then we just go through the motions every day. We pick 1 string at a time, take the prawns out, rebait them, and then set them back into another area that we hopefully has got prawns. We do that 6 times per day for the course of the season. Freshwater kills prawns instantly. So when we put the prawns in the live hatch, they're basically living in the same environment where they would hundreds of feet down in the ocean.
These prawns are actually going to die in the next 2-3 months. They've done that's their life cycle.
Okay.
In the beginning of their life, they're all males, and then they switch over to females.
Interesting.
There you go, Mark.
All right, so how do I release this thing?
Just like that.
Okay.
Pull the bottom, give her a shake. The most important part on the vessel is this $2 investment. We lose that, we're screwed.
We quit.
There you go.
Thing a twist. And it just pops right off. I have the art of splitting a prawn. That is amazing. I don't think I've ever eaten a live animal, though. I'm not gonna lie.
Once in a while we hear about mercury with the albacore tuna. Health Canada will come out and say, pregnant woman shouldn't eat tuna. Locally here in Vancouver, the media's gone all around town buying different tunas and doing their own independent testing and doing a report on it. And I've seen it 3 times now in 5 years. Every time that albacore comes back, zeros. We heard about the radiation from Japan
Yeah,
You know, people, especially back east, people hear it on the news and stuff. They're not really in tune with the West Coast, and rumors, you know, rumors start growing and growing. But I mean, there still hasn't been any radiation come back in any fish from that.
We're trying to keep our prawns in Canada. For years, most of our prawns went to Japan. Where a lot of the chefs and the people, the public here in Canada, didn't know what a spot prawn was.
Okay, yeah.
So we've changed that a lot. When we come in, we deliver prawns to Vancouver, put them on an airplane that night to Montreal, Toronto, Ottawa, deliver the next day. And also we have the public waiting for us. Sometimes we have hundreds of people a day waiting for us when we come in. It's a prawn frenzy, it really is. People are so happy to see them like this.
But 9 years ago, put together the Spot Prawn Festival. And what that was
17 a pound.
is Chef Robert Clark came out with me one day fishing. He was like, I want these prawns. I said, sorry, Chef, they all go to Japan. So that winter we brainstormed, we came up with the idea of a festival. Tomorrow's year 9 of the festival. We'll have 3,000 here tomorrow.
Amazing.
Yeah. We have hundreds of people coming down to the dock here, supporting the local prawn, local fishery, local fishermen. It's great.
So, you Mark?
I'm Mark.
You're a famous fisherman?
I am now, yeah.
So you catch it, oh, super fresh.
Yeah.
So I show you maybe 3 different ways.
Oh.
We're going to use about 2 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Countdown, very precise.
Shell. So all inside the meat come out.
Very beautiful. So do you ever use farm salmon for your restaurant?
No, we don't.
Yeah.
But my philosophy, all organic,
Yeah.
sustainability, use much possible Canadian product.
Okay.
But getting harder every year.
Okay. There's definitely an element of having a pulsing prawn go into your mouth.
Oishi. Good.
The handcrafted precision that Tojo puts into his food and the flavor that he puts into it, it was a real treat for sure. Past few days have been extremely educational for me. Like, I'm definitely going to be doing a lot more research as to where exactly the fish or prawns may be coming from and really sourcing out as locally as possible. I thought Gus was doing a really great job. He's making incredible efforts, and he's definitely a pioneer in British Columbia. My only holdback was that he was using a vaccinated fish at an early age. Kutera is making a huge effort, and they're definitely making a step in the right direction. The only thing that I was kind of being held back on was the feed. They weren't using 100% organic feed. You've got people on 2 opposite ends of the spectrum, and they're not always going to meet up in the middle, but ultimately I think everybody is trying to strive for the same thing. Myself, if I were to go to a grocery store and see an organic fish, I would assume that it's totally good to go and would buy it. And now that I've seen where organic fish farming is in its development, I would be a little bit more hesitant. I would definitely have to lean with Stephen Frank, fishing for prawns and seeing just how selective they are with the size of the prawns that they're taking and ensuring that they're not taking any other sea life on and putting everything back in the ocean that isn't exactly what they're looking for. And it's very controlled and responsible.